What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Let's Build the U.S.S. Voyager Season 1, Episode 46. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. If you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today we got about a 23-minute episode. We're going to be working on the torpedo launchers directly above the deflector dish, and then I think we're going to do just a tiny bit of work on the impulse engines, and then we're actually going to start to build out the bridge. So without further ado, let's kick back, relax, and we're just going to jump right into this. Now I had mentioned this in the last episode that we really needed to leave enough room here with a gap between the deflector dish and the top point of the lower hull, because we have to build out the torpedo launchers. So to get your placement here, I want to pause right here because this is the very top point of the deflector dish. So you can see I'm building it right off of that cut line, and we're just doing a 3 wide and 2 high. So before we go any further, we're just going to repeat the same process now on the left side. Now the only problem with what we have here is that it's not thick enough to where we can cut a hole in it to give the impression that there's going to be a point for the torpedo to come out of. So we don't really have any choice but to bring that down by 1. Now you might be wondering, Zero, why are you building out the torpedo launchers? That's because on Voyager, if you pay close attention to this area, the torpedo launchers do come out of the hull just a little bit. I don't know if we're going to leave them flat in a box like that, but I think for at least for now, we've got enough to where we can let it kind of marinate at this point and figure out if we want to leave them in the configuration that we have them in now, or if we want to make any changes to them. But we've got to be careful too, because when we start shaving away, it might turn into a plus sign. So I'm going to try taking off a corner of each side, just like maybe try to give it a curve a little bit. We could almost even take off a corner here just to make it look like it's slanting this way. And we could do the same thing here, making it look like it's slanting this way. That's definitely an option too. But it's not looking too bad though. It gives the impression, that's really the most important thing at this point, I think. But it doesn't look terrible. It's not perfect, but building it at this scale, there's not much more else that we can really do with it other than what I just mentioned. We're kind of limited in what we can do here. But I don't think that looks bad. Alright. So now we're going to be shifting gears, getting a little bit more work done on our impulse engines. So basically what we're going to be doing, just on that gray concrete line, we're just going to be doing a row of red concrete, and then we're going to be covering it up with white or gray carpeting. I'm going to try the gray. You can do the white if you wanted to, just to cancel it out, but we just want to have that little red strip in the front there, because looking at my references for Voyager, this point in the impulse engine, it looks like it has a red strip in the front, so I want to add that, just that little detail in there. So I'm telling you, like, paying close attention to these little details, just this by itself, it's not going to make that much of a difference, but when you start piling all this stuff up together over a period of time, you're going to end up with how Voyager looked in the tour episode. But You got to realize sometimes less is more. It's better to be just a little bit conservative with how much detailing you're adding. That's why I do a little bit at a time, because you don't want to overdo it to the point that it's making it distracting. You know what I mean? So okay, we are going to start working on the bridge. So I'm going off the original X, very center X axis point, and you can see that I'm building one down from the half slabs. And what I'm doing right now is I'm making the foundation for what the bridge is going to be. I don't get a chance. I don't really talk about this that much, but I cannot underestimate or I cannot state it enough just how vital it is to wireframe your builds out or your foundations. However you want to word it, but the wireframe for the bridge or the foundation for it. I mean, this is really crucial because you're setting up your future patterns more or less on how it's going to look, and this is why I say it's so important to have that in place, because otherwise, like, if you don't know where you're going, you're just opening yourself up for basically spinning your tires and not um, being productive. So that's why I build my ships out the way that I do. Because having that template in place is just so vital. So we've got our outline template for the shape that the bridge is going to be. So now what we're going to do is we're going to transition, we're going to take this outline and we're going to turn it into a 3D shape. Now don't worry about this area right here. This still looks a little bit janky. We've got to redo this part, and we've got to redo the very, very top of the saucer. Don't worry about that right now. Let's just worry about getting the detailing done on the bridge. But we're really starting to rock and roll on this thing, because at this point we're just going down the checklist, and there's just less and less with every episode that we have to do. And once we knock out the bridge, then at that point, we're just going to have to fill in the bottom point of the saucer and then rework the very top portion of the saucer, as well as where the bridge sits on. And then the exterior of Voyager will be done. Then at that point, we'll just be getting our detailing in and the bit of interior that we'll be doing within Season 1. You can see here I'm not doing anything super fancy, just literally adding 2 rows of the white quartz following my template. Now Voyager, so what we've built right now is just the main bridge itself. So now we're going to start building out the foundation for the rest of it. Now Voyager has like these 2 rooms that are built on the left and right side for the conference room, and then also Janeway's ready room. The shape of the bridge area on Voyager is pretty unique with how it looks. And I'm not going to lie, all things considered, I was actually really happy with how this turned out. I wasn't expecting the bridge to come out this good. And I really didn't have to do, from what I remember, I didn't have too many revisions that I had actually done on it. But yeah, now we're just actually building out the wireframe foundation for the rest of the, I guess you call it bridge module, because we've built the actual frame for the bridge itself. Now we're building out the rest of the piece that sits directly around the bridge, if that makes sense. So I say, like, I'm telling you guys, like, you start breaking this stuff down by shape and pieces, and you start learning how to break things down that way, I'm telling you, it's going to make things easier to build these ships out. So I started with the shape of the bridge itself, and then I built that shape out, and then I looked at the piece that was directly surrounding the bridge. It almost looks like a Y. So I built that out. So like you have your very, very middle piece here, kind of looks like an egg. We built that out, and then the piece surrounding it, it almost looks like a Y, how it sits. And when you start to identify those shapes, I promise you, it's going to make this process so much easier. Because I think a lot of the times when people build on Minecraft and just in general, they don't think to break down the shapes. That's something that an artist would do, and that you get with like training to be an artist, because you learn how to break shapes down, so this way you can render it better and more accurately. That's something that I have done for years as an artist, and that's why I've been as lucky as I have to progress in building in Minecraft the way that I have, because I've brought those same rule foundations over from drawing over into rendering in Minecraft. It's not all that different when you think about it. The process, it's not the same, but it's very, very similar. So I say, if you have an artistic background, whether that's drawing, graphic designing, whatever it is, you're ahead of the curve, because you already have that artistic eye that you can use to assist you. And even if you don't, just creative people, and to be honest with you, you don't necessarily have to be creative. This is something that can be learned by anybody. Just a matter of having an open mind, being willing to go through that trial and error period to get better. That's something I see too with like some of the people that comment. Well, not that much. You'd be surprised. I really don't get that much of them, but every once in a while, like, I'll get somebody. They've never built on Minecraft before, or maybe they have, but they've never built a starship or whatever, and they're like, I'm going to build the Enterprise D. And they're going through the tutorial process, and they're having problems. They're like, yeah, I'm following your steps, and this isn't working out. Like, your tutorial's terrible. And it's like, why would you start, like, even having that tutorial in play, I don't understand why somebody would start off building something so grandiose. Start small. Work your way up to a larger build. That's what I did, and I wish I had somebody to tell me that early on, because it's so much easier to make changes to a smaller build. And when you're learning how to build, that's so vital, because it's less time that you have to spend correcting things when you're learning how to do this stuff. So that this way, you go through that progression of building better, and eventually you'll get to a point where you can handle a large scale build. Alright, we're looking pretty good. You can see we added 2 layers going around our Y shape, going around the bridge, and then we did 2 rows of half slabs going with a cut line around the bridge outline itself. Not looking too bad. Now, I did talk about this in the tour episode. It seems to be one thing I end up having to sacrifice when I build ships this scale, that I found that I haven't had a heck of a ton of room, like with an Intrepid class or Galaxy class, where I really didn't have the room to build out Picard's ready room or the conference room. And the same thing was true with Voyager. Now, I still have room for it, but I think at the end of the day, it's not going to be what it should be. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do to get around that, either having those rooms in different sections of the ship. I don't know. I kind of really don't want to do that, though. I kind of want to try to keep them where they're supposed to be as much as I can. But I do want to briefly talk about what I'm doing here right now. I'm anticipating the hull line on where what's going to be covered. And that gray line, that's going to be hull. So that's why I'm going through and I'm adding a row of quartz half slabs going with a cut line. You see, just did it on that very front row. But yeah, I mean that's not looking bad. I'm really, people are probably getting tired of me saying that. They're like, yeah, Zero, we get it. You're happy with how your build's coming out. But I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things I love about Minecraft. It's just super rewarding when you spend all this time working on something and to see it finally come to shape. Because I mean, it's not super easy building with blocks, and I imagine this is why you don't see a lot of people building these things from scratch, and I mean really building them from scratch. Most of the people that you see doing these at a high level, they're not even building them themselves. They're using a computer program to render them, and then they come in and they add in all the details, and they're like, look what I did. So I mean, I can understand why people don't, because it's not easy. I get nervous when I do any build for the first time. It'll be lingering in the back of my head. What if I can't figure out a way to fix something? What do I do? But I've just kind of taken into, you know, I just try to do the very, very best that I can. So you can see now we're going to fill in our hull. This whole blank line in between we did in the front and we're doing in the back. We're just going to fill all this in going off of this gray row. And I don't think that we need to sit for that whole thing. So with a bit, if it decides to go forward, there we go. No matter how many times I do it, it's just going to play that out. I'm sorry about that. So yeah, we're going to clean up that whole other side, and then we're going to come over to the left side now and start doing a row of half slabs going along the outline of the back end of the bridge. And then we're just going to follow the outline now. We're basically just making our Y shape, going with a cut line. You're going to see me talking about that more, the shapes, because I'm trying to get everybody on the same page as me with how I think. As I've said in the past, like, I'm not the best teacher, and I'll admit that, my shortcomings with it. I'm still somewhat new to doing tutorials, so my mindset on it is that I need just to talk about everything that I can, every single step that I think of, because if I do that, hopefully this stuff will start to rub off, and you guys will be able to follow that same process as well. Because in my experience, a lot of times, when you're having issues building, I mean, it's just really, it's a trial and error period, being willing to work on a problem and continue working on it and continue working on it until it comes out the way that you want it to come out, you know? But we're not having that problem with the bridge. Sometimes you get lucky and what you have in your head, the pattern, the shape, everything just kind of happens to fall together. But this is also why it is so beneficial that if you're not sure how you're going to do something, don't do it until you have a plan of attack. This is why I waited so long to build the bridge, because I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to do it. And then when I finally came up with a game plan, we're executing it right here, and you can see the benefit of taking your time with something. as opposed to just shotgunning it and rushing it as quickly as you possibly can. I don't understand it when I see some people doing that. It's like you've spent weeks on end building your build. Why are you going to ruin it by just rushing the end result? You know what I mean? Take your time with it. It's not a it's honestly, it's not a race, you know? There's no rush. Okay, so I want to talk about what we got going on here, because we're going to be rebuilding the front point of our shelf. Now, this is a new process that you guys are going to see me doing going forward. I want to start adding in more visuals to my tutorials. I feel like this will help people with building, making things just a little bit easier. I will ask that you do cut me just a little bit of slack on Voyager, because this was the first episode that I started incorporating this. But I promise with the Excelsior 2 class, we'll be doing it for the entire process, and it will be a little bit better executed. But basically what we're doing here is we are going to rebuild the front point of our shelf. So what I've done is I've gone off my x-axis point and I've counted out to where I want the shelf to start out at. So we're doing a 10 by 10. So we're cutting our circle in half. So you have 10 going this way, 10 going this way, 10 going this way, 10 going back. So you have a total diameter of 20 by 20. Long story short. So you're going to want to go into your pixel circle generator and enter in 20 by 20. This is how we are going to fix the top end of the saucer. This is actually, believe it or not, how we're also going to fix the layering issues that we had on the Enterprise D eventually when we come back and we do a second season. But this is the easiest way to do it. Just reestablishing your circle off your starting point, and when you do that, the end result is amazing. It really is. And I don't know why it didn't occur to me sooner just to do it exactly this way. Like, once I thought of it, it was like, okay, this is pretty cut and dry actually, because I'd essentially do this when I'm adding an initial ring anyway. But no, this is super, super helpful, and you're going to see, because this is going to clean up the front of our bridge area, well, the shelf of the bridge area, because it's going to make it round and not so square. Alright, so we don't need our builder lines anymore. We can get rid of this. We can get rid of the 10. Don't need that anymore. Just there for a point of reference. But yeah, now going forward, when we do our circles and ovals, you're going to see me doing that. I'll show you the starting points, the dimensions, all that will be in the tutorial, so that this way it'll just make things just a little bit easier for people. Because it's weird, like, and I've noticed this too as I've done my tutorials, like, I will say what the dimensions are, and like it'll be on the pixel template, or excuse me, on the pixel circle generator, and people will still like put in a different dimension. I don't understand that. So that's why I'm just thinking like, okay, I need to break down that process just a little bit more and maybe try to find a way to make it visually a little bit easier to understand, you know what I mean? Because here's the thing too, it's like, just because somebody isn't figuring this out the way that I'm doing it doesn't mean that that person's stupid or they're not paying attention. All that it means is that you learn a different way, and your mind might work a different way. So it's just coming up with a variety of ways to show you guys how to do this to where multiple people can understand it, if that makes sense. So what I'm doing now is I'm getting rid of all the access from our old bridge shelf, because we already have our new bridge shelf in place. This is actually, what we're doing now is basically how it's going to go for the rest of the top portion of the saucer. It's literally just going to be going in and reworking the shape layer to layer so that we get the transition point that we want, or the closest to the transition point that we want. Because even after everything is said and done, I think I only got it to like maybe 96% of what I wanted. But at the same time, doesn't look bad, and I'm still really happy with how it turned out. But yeah, that circular shape, that's going to be money right there. Now all we're going to do to make life super easy on us, so we're going to bring that back, going by that cut line. That's why I just brought that back a little bit further right there. So we're going to add one more row to the shelf to make it 2, but we're going downward. Okay. That's looking pretty good. So I was saying, like, this, all this stuff starts to add up over time. And by the time we're done going through the process, we're going to end up with exactly what we had in the tour episode. Very, very exciting. But all things considered, I'm really happy with the progress that we're making on Voyager. We're not quite done with the bridge area yet. We still have some work to do. But I think that's going to do it for me today. I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. And if you did enjoy this content, if you can help me out, hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you guys enough for that. It helps my channel grow, helps my analytics, it helps me get more views and more exposure. If you have any questions regarding today's episode, any builds you want to see, or just dropping by to say hey, be sure to drop a comment below. Definitely love hearing from everybody. But I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week. And of course, what did you make in Minecraft today? Post your pictures in the Discord.